Hello and welcome to PoliticOly. It is June 6th, 2020, and it has been a hell of a week. That's why I threw in an extra episode here on a Saturday. There's just so much to talk about with regard to Black Lives Matter and the uprisings across the country in Washington State and here locally in Olympia and Thurston County specifically as well. So I decided to break that up into two segments. Today I'll be focusing on Olympia and Thurston County, and just tomorrow we'll be doing the rest of Washington State, the Salish region generally, and across the U.S. and really the world. So those bigger picture discussions are going to be tomorrow, and today I will focus on the local stuff. So just a quick show update. I couldn't get the multi-stream to work today. Usually I am streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch as well, but today couldn't get that to work, so I'm just on YouTube, and hopefully I'll be live on all three of those platforms tomorrow. But for now, just bear with me on YouTube. And so the best way to keep up with the show is to go ahead and subscribe and turn on the notifications on YouTube so you get so it lets you know when I go live, because really this is supposed to be ideally, or what it will be once I keep growing it and it becomes more of a community. I'd like it to really be more of a live discussion. I'd like to hear other people's perspectives and stories and opinions and questions. And so really appreciate anyone who jumps in the comments, even just to say hi or with a question or anything else. It's all appreciated, and thank you for your contributions. So, wow, where to start? First of all, I will just note that it would have been Breonna Taylor's birthday yesterday, one of the victims of police violence that we are mourning this week, in this week of protest and uprising and really national debate, political upheaval, political revolution, revolution in the streets, all these things. And so it's simultaneously been an extremely long and exhausting week, and it's also been really flying by, and it's been just such a week of also hope and a glimpse of things that we could accomplish when we can get all of society mobilized and working together. And so, obviously on this particular issue, we haven't achieved our goals yet. And so I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture there. The goals are all still to be attained. And yet we have really broken through some serious paradigm shifting activity this week. And so we've heard many voices of folks that have been marginalized and families of those lost to police violence. And we have pushed the discussion locally, statewide, and nationally by a huge amount this week. And so that is not to be discounted, though, as I said, we are not yet celebrating any victories. We are merely celebrating the potential that lies within the uprising of the people. So just one more quick show note. The past couple of weeks, a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about doing a Patreon page for the show. I've decided that's a bad idea. I don't need to do that. So I've canceled that, and I'm just going to work on trying to build the show equipment myself over time. So I would encourage you to support black content creators in particular at this time. I will have more information on that tomorrow and more links for you for really awesome black content creators that you can find and support. So I'm going to go ahead and encourage that. So yeah, but thank you for your support. And the best way to support the show now is to not only subscribe on YouTube, but link it to someone, or link it to your page, or something. And if you do, I really appreciate that, because I've gotten a lot of views so far on Facebook because of personal connections with family and friends in the community. And I'd really like to, over the long run, build the YouTube channel, because that is more of a platform that can reach more people, and I can separate that from my personal Facebook. So that's the direction I would like to go. And if you would like to support the show, again, the biggest way is to support more subscriptions for my YouTube channel. So thank you very much for all of your support, for tuning in, for your comments, and all of that. So with that said, I will move into a bit of a recap of what's been going on this week in Olympia. I'm going to go ahead and start with and I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I did another bonus episode on Tuesday on May 31st, because there was a really big rally downtown going on called A Change Has Gotta Come. It was really well organized to focus on highlighting black voices and Indigenous and other people of color's voices, and giving people a gathering space to continue this conversation and this protest locally. And so I was there for a while in the early afternoon, and just to share a look at that. So with that said, I'm going to just jump in and just show like a couple of little short pieces from this, and move along. And then if you want to watch the whole thing, as you can see on the screen, that's on my YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and take a look. But I'm just going to give you a little preview at this time. So if you look up let's see. So if you'd like to get some
All right, hey everyone, we're live in Olympia, Washington at the Black Lives Matter rally downtown. We had a rally at the City Hall police station. Now we're headed down to the Olympia Capitol campus, Washington State Capitol campus. There's probably 200 or 300 people here. Thanks for tuning in. Love you all. Black Lives Matter. Justice for George Floyd.
So you can see there's video from the march there. And then up at the Capitol building. And there's also some analysis and sharing some links and other posts as well. So again, you can go ahead and watch that whole thing on my YouTube channel if you'd like to watch. I'm not going to replay that whole thing, but it's just been such a week. I had to throw in some extra episodes just to be able to talk about everything that I wanted to talk about. So let's see. My impression from that rally, though, was really positive. There was over 1,000 people. It was well organized and peaceful. And there were some folks around the periphery with some minor civil disobedience type of actions in the streets, but it was the cops kept their distance. And as I make a point in the Tuesday video, my takeaway is that When the police don't come in and cause a violent situation, what you have is a really positive event. And so that has been the case in Olympia. Looking back at the past week, what it seems to be is that earlier in the day there are peaceful demonstrations. And again, when I say peaceful, I'm not putting the onus on the protesters. I'm putting it on the police. So the marches and speeches and gatherings and all kind of events that we've had, music, marches every day from City Hall to the Capitol. We've had Indigenous solidarity throughout Olympia and Thurston County. We've had solidarity in Yelm. We've had solidarity in other places around the county as well. And again, what my takeaway basically is that during the daytime, the police are more hands-off and trying not to make any bad PR for themselves, essentially. And so they let the protests remain peaceful. And then in the evening, when it gets darker, they are able to increase the amount of harassment that they can get away with. And it's not just the police, it's this collaboration between various groups, and I don't know all the identities of everyone, but there's just been a lot of sketchy folks around, whether that is Proud Boys. A lot of them are saying that the armed white male militia that's been roaming around and intimidating Olympia is just a group called 3%ers. And oh no, they're not white supremacists. They're not nothing to be worried about. They are just ex-military, and they just want to defend businesses from looters and rioters. Well, I haven't seen a lot of looting and rioting in Olympia, and it's just a bogus boogeyman for these people. I mean, they are just listening to Trump and Fox and all these people who are way more right-wing and ridiculous than Trump and those mainstream folks. And they just have this idea of these Antifa super soldiers just coming in and just trashing the place, and the Black Lives Matter people are coming. So okay, well, I hear the word black, and so they must be violent, and I'm scared, and so I need a militia. And so they bring their big guns out, and they've been hanging out on the west side around a guns and ammunition store over by Baskin Robbins ice cream, and hanging out there and gathering, and then walking around downtown and basically stalking the protests and intimidating people. And what they say is that well, you know what? I'll get into more of that later. So I'll leave that as is, and we'll get back to those guys later. So anyway, and then there's also been apparently some clashes with bikers, or reportedly biker gangs, but I don't know, how much of a gang they are or aren't. I don't know. But anyway, apparently there's been some issues with bikers coming in and harassing protesters, and supposedly there were some that were swinging chain weapons and things like that and hitting people. From what I was able to see, I didn't see any reports of any major injuries during that. But the key piece of it is that those folks are violent and dangerous and armed and white, and the police defend them and let them get away and don't do anything about it. And meanwhile, the police chief is, releasing communications that businesses need to board up because of scary black protesters. And so it's just that hypocrisy. And they can stand there all day till they're blue in the face telling me that's not racist, but it just is. So sorry. And again, we'll get back to that a little bit later. So actually, let's just keep going on that before we move on. So I wanted to show two posts here. So hang on a second. All right, let's check out Olympia Mayor Cheryl Selby's post here about, all right, here. After a long week for Mike, and this is a quote from Cheryl Selby. After a long week for my community, I'm discouraged that I have to make a post like this. I have confirmed a photo of an Olympia police officer posing with a group of armed militia members, some of whom are displaying white power signs. And in parentheses, a clarification. The group members apparently belong to the WA 3%, and the hand sign could also be a 3% sign, in parentheses. I find this behavior to be unequivocally unacceptable. Our council manager form of government restricts me from discussing disciplinary measures, though my council and I are demanding a thorough investigation. As the picture clearly illustrates in no uncertain terms, a culture change within the police department and city government is clearly needed. We hear our community demanding it, and we must rise to meet this challenge. The presence of an armed militia is not what we want to see in Olympia, and we are asking those people to stay home and ensure that peaceful protest can continue in our city. Black Lives Matter. Now, that was her statement. However, open carry of firearms is legal in Washington state. The thing, though, is that the revised code of Washington. Actually, you know what? Let me pull that up. Let's read it. Let's get specific. Revised Code of Washington 941-270. 1. It shall be unlawful for any person to carry, exhibit, display, or draw any firearm, dagger, sword, knife, or other cutting or stabbing instrument, club, or any other weapon apparently capable of producing bodily harm, in a manner, under circumstances, and at a time and place that either manifests an intent to intimidate another, or that warrants alarm for the safety of other persons. And it goes on from there. And I'm no legal expert, obviously, so disclaimer, I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'm just looking at this just the same as anybody else. But from what it seems to me, these guys are there to intimidate. Now, they say they're there to defend a business from looters and rioters, but there are no looters and rioters. There are peaceful protesters saying Black Lives Matter. So you can say one thing, but when you're doing another thing, that's what we're going to look at. And when you are a big group of tough guys with ice cream cones, and your big assault rifles, and you're just walking around a little distance behind Black Lives Matter protesters, what you're doing is intimidating people. You're not protecting any businesses because there's nothing to protect it from. So that's a lie. You're just intimidating people. And according to my read of this statute, that's technically illegal. However, if the laws were enforced equitably, then we wouldn't be having this discussion, would we? And we wouldn't be having this week of protest either. It's just another example of the hypocrisy. And they can stand there and, but all they're doing is rubbing their privilege in people's faces. That's all they're doing. They're saying, we can break the law as it is written, and no one can do anything because we're right wing, whatever. Capitalists. Oh no. We're not dangerous. Oh no. We're not white supremacists. We're not racists. The 3%. Oh no. We just protect property. And then the cops and the capitalists go, oh, okay. Why didn't you say so? You're here to protect property? All right, come on in. We love you guys. Here's a megaphone. Can I shake your hand? And that's the liberals. That's the Democrats, and that's what they're doing with these folks. But we just, come on. We can be smarter than that. And we don't have to just take people for their word when their actions are, obvious enough. Guns in our faces. So, anyway. So that was Cheryl Selby's statement, and that was the statute on the limitations of open carry in Washington State. The next link I wanted to share was Evergreen State College professor Zoltan Grossman's post about this. And I thought it was a pretty good response, so I'm going to just share it with you. Members of the heavily armed far-right paramilitary group 3%ers guarding a gun shop on Olympia's west side being thanked at 1:40 a.m. this morning by 2 Olympia Police Department officers. Who is the OPD officer in this photo, and why is she associating with an armed far-right militia? Ask OPD at olympiapolice@ci.olympia.wa.us and its business line at 360-753-8300, and Mayor Cheryl Selby at cselby@ci.olympia.wa.us and 360-753-8447, and insist politely on an investigation of the 2 officers. We should not have untrained, unaccountable paramilitary goons intimidating residents by openly brandishing semi-automatic weapons. What are OPD officers doing with this group at this extremely volatile period? Remember that RCW? I'll continue. Quote, a California cop was recently disciplined for wearing a 3%er patch. And there's a link on Zoltan's post. And any post, just a quick aside here, anytime I'm reading someone's post on here, I will put a link to it in the description. So check back when I post the video replay when I'm not live, and you will be able to see the links to all of these posts. So, all right, let's see. I'll continue. Kudos to the Cooper Point Public House next door, which last night was, quote, closing my business due to idiots, unquote. And I saw the post and I thought it said due to racists, but whatever. Zoltan continues, quote, this neighborhood restaurant had to close because its customers would have been intimidated by the presence of heavily armed men. How is that protecting small business? And in parentheses, let's order their delicious seafood burgers and spaghetti as thanks. The Southern Poverty Law Center, a leading monitor of hate and extremist groups, describes the 3%ers as, quote, one of 3 core components, end quote, within the anti-government militia movement, along with the Oath Keepers and other traditional militia groups. The Anti-Defamation League, another group that monitors extremism, says on its site that the 3%ers arose as part of a resurgence in the militia movement around the time Obama took office. In 2017, the Three Percenters were security for the Patriot Prayer Rally at Evergreen and for the far-right Charlottesville rally, later disavowing that rally's neo-Nazi leadership. And it goes on with more examples of how these people are not as peaceful and straightforward, just Constitution defending gentlemen as they would have it seem. So again, I'll post a link when I play the replay, and you can check out that whole post by Zoltan. Let's see. There's also been reports that white liberal protesters are being far too kind and accommodating to these far-right gangs when they are coming out to intimidate people. There was a report that and I believe this one was at the state capitol a couple of days ago, where a white liberal Black Lives Matter protester gave one of these far-right dudes a microphone to speak their point of view. And this is unacceptable. We know there are infiltrators. We know there are folks that come out and pretend like they're part of the Black Lives Matter events and marches and whatnot, but they're not. They're just there to monitor it, to identify people, to report back to their far-right base. And these folks shouldn't be welcomed at our events. They're a threat. You know, of course they're going to stand there and tell you they're just defending the Constitution and free speech. You know, they're trying to get away with doing intelligence gathering and intimidating people and threatening people. They're not just going to, you know, be like, "Oh yeah, no, oh yeah, I'm just I'm a racist." Yeah, that's what. No. They will sit there and tell you they're not racist all day, you know, and you just don't buy it. Don't hand these guys a microphone, okay? Like, don't protect these people. And there's a big overlap between these kind of groups and the law enforcement officers that are such a problem in our community. And so it's not just that one picture. And people, those guys are now going and saying, "Oh, whatever, the cop just came by because of a noise complaint and they said, hey, take a photo of us, and she had nothing to do with it." No, When there's a bunch of guys with assault rifles holding up far-right extremist group hand signs, and you just stand there and smile and take photos with them with your badge on, no, that's unacceptable. But it's not just that. It's not just that. The problem is these folks have infiltrated all the departments, and they are the police. And so of course the police don't go after these people because it's their buddies. And same with these biker folks, and you know, all these other folks that are coming down to intimidate the Black Lives Matter protesters. You know, the cops don't go after them because they're on the same team. And I don't care if they say they're not racist. That team is white supremacy. And that's what they're doing. So don't listen to a dang word they say about the Constitution and blah, blah. You know, they're only being peaceful in that moment. But their buddies are not peaceful. Their buddies do serious physical harm and kill people and do many other crimes. So don't give these folks any kind of time of day. Let's see. And then also, you know, there are just like undercover officers. That's a thing too. And how do you know the difference? They're just, it's hard to tell. It's all the same crew. So you got to be careful. There's been reports all over locally of folks coming out, and all of a sudden there's a new protest leader leading this march that no one's ever seen or heard before. And they're talking about, whatever, peace and unity, whatever same crap the elected officials and the police are talking about. And you just gave him a microphone and followed him around, and he just disarmed your movement. So be careful of infiltrators. Take that seriously. Don't just hand anyone a microphone. And, there's a lot of open mics. I mean, I'm not saying don't give people a shot, but I'm just saying be wary of folks that just come out to a Black Lives Matter protest and their message just sounds a lot like the police message. Come on, just be smarter than that. And to continue, there's reports that the police chief had been sending warnings to businesses to board up because there was violent looters and rioters coming into town. And he based that all off a couple of tweets from a couple of minor accounts. Salish Sea Black Autonomists on Twitter, go look them up. Good people. And the police folks just kind of like saw a couple tweets they didn't like and then started calling up all these businesses and saying that the end is near. Board up your business and bring out your guns. I mean, I don't know if the police commissioner said bring out your guns, but that's what they hear. And so you can't pretend to not know that. It's just the same as Trump's statements, stoking the flames nationally for these folks, these brown shirts. I mean, it's the same here. And so, and Renata made a point about this. So let me pull that up as a backdrop here. Let's see. That's City Councilor Renata Rollins, who we'll talk more about in the next segment. But Renata's comment on the 3%ers and the stuff we're talking about is this. Olympia, what a long June so far. I'm preparing a more comprehensive statement tomorrow, but know that I'm outraged and sick over seeing a photo of an OPD officer posing with unarmed militia members last night, some of whom are flashing a white power hand signal. Council is demanding a full investigation, but I know that there is zero confidence in our organization, and not just the police department. Our org's official communications have sown a climate of fear over the last 2 days, encouraging businesses to board up over posts from an anonymous Twitter account called Salish Sea Black Autonomists, meanwhile remaining utterly silent on the social media calls for and actual presence of armed militias, white supremacists, Proud Boys roaming our streets, intimidating and stoking conflict with those protesting police brutality in support of Black lives. Our official communications put the burden of remaining peaceful on the social justice community, while giving a pass to the armed militia, which is inherently non-peaceful. If the militia folks want to keep peace, stay home. Our organization must do better. Keep the pressure on us and organize with your communities for the changes we need. Lives over property. Black Lives Matter. Stay safe this weekend. End quote. So Renata's been a solid advocate for the people through all of this. So I suggest giving them a follow on social media. and reading more of their statements and links as well. They have a post asking for us to listen and follow the guidance of local Black movement leaders, and just other posts that are good and you should check out, but I'm not going to read them all on the episode here. So I want to throw out a few quick tips of the week to protesters. So Slack, a lot of organizers for a while now have been using an app called Slack to communicate. There are organizations that are having their planning done on this program. And just a note that you may be interested in if you use that program, because it was known as a fairly secure platform for communication, that's over. Amazon bought it. So Slack to Amazon. Be careful. Signal is all the rage right now. And there's other programs as well, and maybe I'll do more of a segment on that as well, info security in the future, but just a quick note there about Slack there. So another protest tip of the week is that police departments are posting requests for complaints. Don't fall for it. Okay? They want you to send in information on what they say is they want you to make complaints if there was a allegation of police brutality. But you're just sending evidence to the police that they're going to use to identify protesters. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, don't fall for that trap. Don't send your media to the police. Don't talk to the police. Don't answer questions to the police. Okay? They're not your friends. They're not your friends. Even if they make a Facebook post saying, "Oh, we're investigating alleged complaints against our department," they're still not your friends. Okay? They're disingenuous. They're trying to trick you into getting your evidence. Not against the cops, against other people, your friends, you. So, don't fall for it. Okay? Don't send the police. Don't send the police freebies. Come on. All right. One protest tip of the week for local folks here in Olympia is that showing up for social justice, wow, I just butchered that. Let me try that again. Showing up for racial justice, Olympia, has a safe rides program. This is to prioritize, or in terms of using this, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color should be prioritized. But that said, the service is available to anyone who needs it. So if you need a safe ride to or from a demonstration in Olympia, you should call the Surge Safe Rides program at 253-353-2338. And if you would like to volunteer to be a driver for the Surge Safe Rides program, I would encourage you to do that. If you are in a place of privilege and you don't want to get involved in, other things, but you've got a car, you've got a safe ride, and you can pick someone up if they really need it, contact Surge Olympia, and you can look up their Facebook. But you could protect somebody from some real harm by volunteering a ride in that way. So keep that in mind. I guess I still have this post up here. I wasn't looking at it. Welcome to amateur YouTube. I don't have all my stuff set up ahead of time, and I don't have all my things. My show is not highly produced. Okay, this is this is very casual. I just wanted this time to talk about some of the issues going on, and so again, apologies for the lack of production, but at the same time, this is just like a little hobby thing. So I'll try to keep making it better and better in the future and putting more time into production, but yeah. So if you see something on the screen and it's like, why is that still there? He was done talking about that 5 minutes ago. my apologies. I just don't have it all set up. So moving on, I wanted to talk about where you can find information about Olympia protests. If you are interested in that, where do you go for updates? So one place that I would go is Twitter, and hit search #Olympia protest and hit latest. And what you'll get is folks hashtagging Olympia protest. And so when there's stuff going on, there's always people on Twitter posting about it. See, here's that photo we were talking about in the show earlier. And I would just be careful, and this goes for all social media with regard to Olympia protests. There's a Facebook group called Olympia Rallies and Protests, and this goes for that group as well. You need to be careful of infiltrators. You need to be aware that there are right-wingers who, I don't know, they just like to film people, and they don't, they're not your friends. And there's people on all these hashtags that are in that vein. So just be aware when you are looking up information on Olympia protests. A lot of what you're going to find is right-wing perspectives. And so if you look up #Olympia protest and you see people complaining about, complaining about the protests, or pro-cop stuff, like just be aware that that stuff is going to be in there. Filter through it. And my personal take is I block folks that seem dangerous. So if there are folks, if I post something about Olympia police and in a critical light, and someone comments like, that's what they get, or whatever, like, just block those people. Okay, just block them. So anyway, so #Olympia protest on Twitter. I'll use this chance because I just saw this here, this flyer. So there is an event planned on June 11th at 2 p.m. That's this coming Thursday at 2 p.m. March on the Washington State Capitol. Capitol #CapitolWalk US. So I don't know who's organizing that. I don't know anything about that. I just saw this flyer. So anytime you see an event like this, you want to do due diligence. Try to find a couple of different sources. Try to click on the profile of the person sharing it. Things like that. Because there's misinformation out there. So, but this looks like the kind of thing that's been going on every single day in Olympia. And so this looks right in line with what's going on. But if this is something where folks from around the state are coming to amplify the voices here at the state capitol to push for legislation in the Washington State legislature, I think that's a really good thing, and there could be a lot of folks. So Thursday, June 11th at 2. Let's see. Go ahead and close that for now because I don't have anything else ready on there. Oh yeah, actually, you know what? I was going to show a few links. So one thing about protest footage, actually I'll editorialize here for a second and then we'll get into it. So protest footage, you got to be careful from a journalistic standpoint. Folks do have freedom of the press. but not everybody has the same intentions. And so you got folks, as I mentioned earlier, who just kind of tag along and they just want to, they seem peaceful and nice maybe, but they're sharing those videos with a bunch of right-wingers that are not peaceful or nice. And so there's folks like David Ross, who was I believe, a right-wing candidate for mayor or something like that, who lost terribly, and then now he's turned himself into a right-wing YouTuber, and he's taken a lot of video at the protests. And he has gotten a lot of criticism because he keeps recording even when people ask him not to, like when there's a silent vigil. And the thing is, people know that that is not our friend. He's not taking that video to promote Black Lives Matter or any kind of genuine discussion with Black Lives Matter folks. He's just sharing it so right-wingers can see some punk kids downtown and go, oh, they look scary and blah blah, so. And he may keep a clean mouth when he's around that crowd because he wants to stay safe, but you should check out his posts in the past, and there's some awful stuff. And so when there is a YouTuber doing a lot of protest coverage or on Facebook or whatever, it's really important to try to do a little bit of research on those folks. And I'm not saying you can't watch that footage. Everybody's sitting at home wanting to see what's going on. And so I get it that you search Olympia protests and kind of just watch whoever's live. But be careful who you share, be careful who you amplify, and be careful of folks that are there to do harm even though they are attempting to appear innocent. So with that said, let me see. Oh, hang on. Okay, with that said, oh yeah, I was gonna go back to Twitter. So anyway, so one person or one source for protest media that you want to look for is professional journalists, and there's a massive shortage of those, obviously, and there's a lack of objectivity or integrity and whatnot in a lot of those corporate media publications. But at the same time, you do get folks on the ground with cameras that are not trying to be right-wingers or whatever. They're just trying to film it because they're journalists. So that can be a good source for taking a look at what is going on as well. I'll just highlight a couple of local journalists that cover Olympia protests. One is Sarah Gensler. She's a reporter at the Olympian and is posting regular clips from around Olympia, and that is for the Olympian. Another one is Joseph O'Sullivan, pardon, at Olympia Joe on Twitter. He's a State House reporter for the Seattle Times, and he's got lots of footage as well, so you can take a look. And oh yeah, there's one other Olympian account to follow, and that is, let me look up his name. He was an intern, Leopold Brine, which is at Leo_Brine on Twitter. And they are an intern at the Olympian, and they have been going around recording a lot of media in Olympia as well recently. So go follow Leo Brine for more. Whoops. And let's see. So where else can you find information about Olympia protests going on? A lot of folks tune into the police scanner from time to time. I'll leave that to you to find a link or an app or what have you that you like. But that is one source of information. But again, consider that that is a very biased source of information, and it's essentially like a right. You should think of it. You should think of the police scanner like a right-wing blog, basically, and so take that with a grain of salt. And for your sanity, I don't recommend you just like sitting there listening to the scanner all day. But it is a source of information. And if you're out there protesting and there's someone at home that can't join for whatever reason, maybe it's a health concern or whatever other reason, one thing that they could do if they want to help is listen to the police scanner and then let you know if they hear something that could be relevant to keeping you safe. If you are down at a protest with a group and you've left your phones at home because of security reasons, and one person has a walkie-talkie back to someone who is at home listening to the police scanner, and then the police start talking about, oh, we're all suiting up and gathering up and put your gas masks on or whatever, at the corner of 5th and Water, then that could be a message that could be helpfully relayed to folks on the ground. So that is one way that can be helpful. But the information is limited. I mean, they know you're listening. If they're trying to surprise you, they're not gonna just tell you that they're sneaking up behind you on the police scanner. So again, take that with a grain of salt, but it is a resource. And you can also track. You can actually also track police aircraft on the I believe it's the FAA webpage. So if you've got a camera and you see some law enforcement aircraft circling around, you can try to get a look at their identification number on the vehicle and then look that up on the FAA's webpage, and you can watch their tracking. I mean, what use is that in a practical sense? I don't know, but it's interesting, and it's a resource that's public and available. So let's see. Pardon. So again, if you're tuning in right now, I really appreciate it. This is PoliticOly. I do a show on YouTube live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time. And I'm just doing an extra show right now because there's so much going on. And so I've split the local content into today, and then we'll talk state and national tomorrow. And so tune in tomorrow to PoliticOly at 1 o'clock for more. And I'd love to hear your comments, questions, stories, pictures of your protest signs or whatever else. You can send that to PoliticOly@gmail.com. I do not want people to send me media that could be potentially incriminating. So, if you've got some kind of video of a clash with the police late at night or, whatever that's violent and stuff, don't send that to me. Like, you need to send that to an actual journalist and to a lawyer and so on. So be careful. As for me, like, I'm going to try to video some of the community gathering and rallying and marching and things like that, but I'm not going to try to video anything that could be potentially incriminating. So if you're law enforcement and you're watching, sorry, you're wasting your time. I don't know any Antifa. I'm not in Black Bloc. I don't know anything about that, and I'm not going to, and I don't want to. Okay, so they're doing their own thing, and I support their tactics, but I don't want any. I don't want to know. So that's that on that. But if you do want to send me anything that you want to share with the community, I will share it on the show. It could be a audio or a video or anything else. And if you want to do a Zoom chat with me, let me know. to get on the show, if you want to host a whole episode, I would absolutely love that. So please do it. Let me know, and we'll figure out how we want to do that. So anyway, moving on. There has been a lot of Indigenous solidarity with Black America, and I just wanted to highlight that a little bit. Actually, let me show one of my posts here real quick. So the problem with having two accounts, one for the show and one personal, is which thing was posted on what account? Okay, no, it was posted on main. So my main account is at Oli Stewart. Follow me on Twitter and engage in conversation. So one thing that you'll notice if I scroll through here is lack of media, and I'll just note that real quick. One thing I did on Twitter recently is I turned off. You can go in the settings, and I'm actually I'm going to share this with you real quick because it's actually really helpful. On Twitter, you go to settings and privacy, and you go to data usage, and you go to autoplay never. And so when you're scrolling through Twitter and there's all these videos of brutality, you're not going to have to be forced to just see it over and over again, unless you want to and you're ready to, and you're in an appropriate space and headspace, emotional space to watch something, and then you can click on it, But and I did that because of the Buffalo incident, and I'll talk more about that tomorrow, but it's just, it breaks your heart. And sometimes it's just not the right time. I got distracted with that thought here. So anyway, but that's so let's see. Really appreciate everyone's conversation on Twitter. It's been very informative. My post about the sharing the Renata Rollins disarm, demilitarize, and defund the police statement got a lot of traction. It's got almost 8,000 views on there now, which I don't share that for me. I don't care about that. I'm not a big account. I share it because it increases the amount of accountability on Renata and the rest of the council to do something about that. So, and I'll talk more about that. Oh, oh yeah, right? Here's the militia guys. Oh, ice cream. All right, sorry, I just had to. That was amusing to me. Alpha males. Okay, moving on. What I'm trying, sorry, I was trying to find, oh yeah, here we go. So I had these were still photos from a live stream on Facebook by a user called Sojournalist. So I don't know anything about them, disclaimer. I don't know what, political persuasion or anything. But these are just stills from their video. I have been downtown and seen these, but not in a capacity where I could photograph them at the time. So I just posted some stills, and these are painted on boards downtown on Fifth Avenue, and it's just an example of the Indigenous solidarity with Black America going on right now, and that's what I wanted to talk about because it's really important. I mean, in Washington State, tribal nations in occupied Washington State territory really helped push I-940, which is a groundbreaking police accountability legislation. And there's been just so much solidarity, and I've seen it not just in an abstract way. I've seen it with the families of victims of police violence who have been working together to support each other. between Native communities and Black communities in Washington State and here locally in Olympia as well, and with surrounding tribes such as Nisqually, who has really just, the Nisqually tribe has just showed immense leadership on police accountability for years. So just wanted to highlight that. Let's see. I'm trying to find a link here. There we go. To the next post I wanted to show, which was Protectors of the Salish Sea on Instagram. You can find them. And you know, I'll just read this quote here. Protectors of the Salish Sea. Quote, colonialism is at the root of extreme abuse here in what they call the U.S. and Canada. Its visible hand, the police, are only the defenders of its injustice, dominance, abuse of all beings upon our Shashetunakshwa. And I apologize for butchering that translation. I do not know the correct pronunciation, but Shashetunakshwa is my attempt at reading that there. Which means Sacred Mother Earth. The quote continues, our first peoples have been nearly annihilated by its racially driven genocide. Then they stole Black people from their lands to slave upon our stolen lands. And they have never stopped killing and abusing them as well as us natives since day one. Now we fight with a prayer for this era of death to end and bring in an era of equity, justice, and peace for all people and all beings, as we always had here in our Salish Sea territories. We must achieve national police reform and accountability, as well as defund the police departments. As it sits now, police have a license to kill Black people and Native people, hiding behind colonial laws that protect them from prosecution and cover up any transparency of the people they have harmed or killed. Stay focused and keep the pressure on the colonial system of injustice and abuse. We must win, and we will win. Osayam. End colonialism, Black Lives Matter, Native American Lives Matter, protect and restore, protect the sacred. All right, and again, that was Protectors of the Salish Sea on their Instagram. You can also find them on Facebook as well, and that is an account I highly recommend you follow. One more piece of that I would like to share from Protectors of the Salish Sea. They've invited everyone to the sunrise ceremony tomorrow morning at sunrise on the Capitol campus steps of Washington State Capitol building. That is late 4 o'clock, early 5 o'clock hour. So look up the exact sunrise time. I wasn't exactly sure what that was, but sometime around 5, and be there and in solidarity at the sunrise ceremony tomorrow. My last thing I wanted to talk about today, and I know it's been a long show, and it's about to get longer, but I'm going to go in on this, so here we go. On June 2nd, 2020, Olympia City Councilor Renata Rollins called to demilitarize, disarm, and... Oh, you know what? Hang on. Sorry. I got into that and then realized I still had the old post up here. So let me go ahead and update that. And we'll start the segment. All right. Here we go. Updated. On June 2nd, 2020, Olympia City Councilor Renata Rollins called to, quote, demilitarize, disarm, and defund the Olympia Police Department. How can we make this happen? Let's find out, let's read Renata's statement and talk about what we can do to make that a reality in our community. So I'm not going to read Renata's entire statement. I will post the link to this in the description when I post the replay video on YouTube. So stay tuned if you want a link to read the full statement. But here, I'll just read a piece of it here. We need to recognize that all the implicit bias training and community outreach in the world isn't worth much when black and brown people in our city are still harassed and afraid of police on the daily. I hear about this all the time. The latest being a young woman bystander who was arrested Sunday night. While she was cuffed, the arresting officer reportedly said, quote, I can put my knee on her, end quote. Our community needs to be able to trust that officers who actively uphold racism on the job will be fired. Our department does not have that credibility. Without community trust, misconduct investigations are useless. Police guilds protect dangerous officers who shouldn't be there. The only meaningful intervention is funding. Today, I am amplifying calls for our organization to demilitarize, disarm, and defund the Olympia Police Department and divert funding toward community strategies for safety and restorative justice, harm reduction programs, and housing for all. End the city's participation in the war on drugs, including rescinding the enhanced penalty zones in downtown Olympia. Terminate employment of OPD officers with a history of complaints from Black, Indigenous people of color. Immediately pass a just cause eviction ordinance to reduce evictions which disproportionately send Black and brown families onto the streets. Create a City Equity and Justice Commission, community members appointed to evaluate current and future city policies for racial equity indicators and help develop new policies to improve quality of life for all in our community. And again, I'll post a link to that statement in the description when I post the replay video so you can read the whole thing. But I wanted to go ahead and discuss that a little bit. First, I want to thank Renata for making this bold statement. As far as I have seen so far, the only other city councilors that are making statements to defund their local police departments are a few Minneapolis city councilors who I will discuss on the show tomorrow. So stay tuned for more discussion of defunding police departments tomorrow. But in Olympia, it seems to be just Renata so far. And so what we need to do is push all other city councilors in Olympia, push all other city councilors in other cities in Thurston County, and the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners to take a similar stance on defunding local police departments, disarming them and demilitarizing them, and diverting that funding to community programs that actually make us safer and healthier and don't just make everything worse. So, for example, Clark Gilman is another city councilor in Olympia who is a DSA member and is typically very progressive on things. But I haven't seen him say anything on this statement. So I would contact Clark Gilman and respectfully request that he support Renata's call to demilitarize, disarm, and defund the Olympia Police Department and the other policy asks in Renata's post there. I would also do so for the other city councilors, and so that is an action that you can take. But one issue that I'm seeing is that actually, hang on one second. Let me pull something else up, and I'll continue because Here we go. So the city of Olympia has what is called a weak mayor system, or a council/manager system. And what that means is that our city council actually has very limited powers, and our mayor actually has very limited powers compared to cities with a strong mayor system. And so, for example, city councilors in all of these Black Lives Matter posts this week have been mentioning that they are legally prevented from speaking about disciplining any individual officers. And so what you hear over and over is, we demand an investigation. We've asked for an investigation. There's going to be an investigation. And that just means, well, the legal counsel said I can't criticize any of the cops, and there's nothing I can do, and we're just going to let the police investigate themselves. And so obviously that's just completely inadequate, first of all, and unacceptable, and just, no one believes there's going to be any justice if we just let the police investigate themselves. That's just patently ridiculous. And so it's just not a good enough answer. And I understand your legal counsels are telling you can't go after any of the officers. And so, okay, well, how do we change that? And let's draft some resolutions, and let's get that done. And if we need to switch our system from a council/manager, weak mayor system with a city manager that controls the police, if we need to switch that to a strong mayor system where the mayor controls the police, then we need to do that, and we need to start that, and we need to be frank about that and have that be a specific campaign that we're working on. And so what I have on the screen is the executive office for the city of Olympia, and that's a picture of Jay Burney, who is the Olympia city manager right now. He's fairly new, but he was an assistant to the previous city manager, Steve Hall, who was there for decades, overseeing countless instances of police brutality and racism and everything else. And this guy's just been hanging around learning from that, and then just got plugged right into the job. And so, no election, no one knows who he is, basically. I mean, if you go around Olympia and you ask people, who's our city manager? How many people do you think would say Jay Burney? I didn't know until this week, because I hadn't bothered to look it up since he was appointed. I mean, I had read about his appointment a while ago, but it's out of sight, out of mind. We think about the city council because they're the public face of Olympia, but they don't have the power to hold the police accountable. So contact Jay Burney. I know he's not going to do anything to help us, but he should still hear from us. So, and you can find that information. Just Google City of Olympia Executive Office or Jay Burney, and you can find that. And I'll put a link to that in the description. And one other thing I wanted to say while we're on the City of Olympia web pages here, and let me see if there is a quick link here. Let's see. There we go. So the City Council is doing online meetings right now because of COVID-19 shutdown. Oh, this is the actual resolution. That's not what we need. All right, City Council page. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the Olympia City Council is doing online City Council meetings, and typically when there's no shutdown, you just go down on Tuesdays at 6:30 and sign up to do a public comment, and then 7 o'clock the meeting starts, and they call people, and you go up and you get 3 minutes to say what you want on the mic to the City Council. And I've done that a number of times, and it can be a really powerful way to just make sure that they hear you. That they make sure that they hear people. They can try to brush this under the rug and just say, oh, well, they're investigating it, so forget about it. And we have to show up and say, that's not good enough. Take another step, and then another, because it's not good enough. And we're a long ways away from being at the point where we can rest and celebrate our accomplishments. So don't pat yourself on the back for a statement that they're going to be investigated, and don't let themselves pat themselves on the back. But anyway, but about these meetings, so they're doing these online meetings right now, but there's still public comments. So what you do is it's via Zoom, and you sign up. And if you go to City of Olympia City Council, this is their main City Council page here, olympiawad.gov/city-council-and-mayor.aspx, and I'll put the link in the description when I post the replay. But you go here and you can go ahead and register to make a public comment on the Zoom City Council meetings. So please do that. Make sure they hear from us. Make sure we continue the pressure. And a good message, if you don't know what to say, go to Renata's post about demilitarize, disarm, and defund the Olympia police and amplify that message. Look for the bullet points, because that's the policy. And what we want is to say, not just a hashtag, not just a statement, not just an investigation. Here are specific policies that are on the books that are wrong, and here's what we're doing to change it. Here's why we don't have the political power to do that right now. Here's what we need to do to get there. Let's do it. So we need specifics, and we need to keep the pressure on. So please do that by a public comment there on their webpage. So we have a situation in Olympia where, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in here. So, all right, hey everybody. So what we have here in Olympia right now is a situation where the city councilors can't even talk about disciplining an Olympia Police Department officer. So what is our legal recourse? We can't, we could elect whoever we want to the city council. They don't have the power. So, do we need to, and I've been saying for years that we need to get rid of the city manager and move to a strong mayor system. Not that that would solve all our problems, but it's one piece of getting a little bit closer to democracy in Olympia, because having a city manager that's unelectable, and most people don't know his name or what he looks like, and it's been a white male for decades, forever, and they get to control the police with no accountability. And so there just isn't any accountability, and there's nothing we can seemingly do. So we need to change, obviously we need to elect people to the legislature who will be willing to defund, disarm, demilitarize, and I would say abolish the police. And so they can write legislation and so on. But that's a long-term project, and it's not okay just to kick the can down the road and call it good. And so we need specific policy goals and steps that we can take to achieve those goals here in Olympia and in Thurston County. And you know what? I don't even know if the Board of County Commissioners can speak about disciplining Thurston County Police, because none of them have even attempted to or talked about it at all. You have two county commissioners that are just completely on their side, 100%. They're just good old boys club. And then you have Ty Mincer, who ran as a progressive but has just been basically silent on this. And that's just not good enough. So please, the city council is a start, but also engage with this Thurston County, because that's important as well. And they have a ton of power and budget, and a lot of things need to change. So contact Ty Mincer specifically, because I think he is pushable or influenceable, right? The others are just, we just need to move on. But But Ty can do better than he's done on this. He made a post about Black Lives Matter the other day, and all he did was post some educational materials and talk about the schools and shutdown, which, like, I mean, yeah, but like, you just derailed the conversation about Black Lives Matter, and you are an elected official that controls a department that spends 73% of its discretionary budget on law enforcement and incarceration. And I've made no secret about my disagreement with Thurston County allowing their sheriff vehicles to have Blue Lives Matter flags on all of their official vehicles. That's a public stand that I've taken. And so we need to continue to push for that change. And so please contact Ty Mincer, but also get involved with the local Thurston County Commission races in the election this year. There's a number of good candidates. I've talked about that on other shows, and I'll continue to do so in the future. But push all of the current elected officials and push all of the candidates running to do better on Black Lives Matter, to do more, to get specific, to get bold, and put their statements and hashtags into policy and resolution and legislation form. So keep pushing, everyone. I really appreciate you tuning in. And again, I'm going to be live tomorrow from 1 to 2 for another episode of PoliticOly. I'm usually live Sundays 1 to 2, so subscribe on the YouTube, turn on notifications. I apologize, I didn't have a chat thing going on today because I had some issues with the streaming software, so I'll take a look at that and try to get it back to normal tomorrow. But if you have comments or questions, you're welcome to email politicoly@gmail.com. Please share this YouTube channel. It's not about me. I'm just trying to create this as a platform to spread awareness and information and create this platform so others who have a message that needs to be shared, or an event or a movement related project, that they can share that with folks. And so I need to be able to grow this channel to the point that it's actually useful for folks to plug into this platform. And so I really appreciate everyone tuning in and joining the discussion and sharing the channel. And I'll leave it at that for today. So, love, peace, and Black